Hi guys, and welcome to my fourth Geeky Goblin battle report. Today I'm going to be taking you through my round 6 match with Mike Sedlymayer, a guy I played a couple of times, very good player Mike. This is the last round, and we're both playing for a top 20 place, we think. We'll be playing the Pillage scenario, and we're both on table 16, so a good win should help us both out. So let's see how the game went. Enjoy the show. Today's game will be the 6th round in the Cult Arms Worldwide 5 event using the Universal Battle 2 system and the Kings of War version 3 rules. I'm going to be playing Mike, who is from America. We've played a couple of times. Mike has done very well in the US scene, and he's won the Cult Arms event. I think Worldwide 3 was the one he won, which we faced each other in that tournament. Mike beat me, taking Undead. When I spoke to Mike about this game, he said that he'd be using Ogres, so he told me a little beforehand. He also said he'd been working with Matt G on optimizing the Ogres, so this was a good opportunity for me to claim some dignity back against the Ogres, and particularly as I hoped they'd be using the same kind of army. In this video, I'll be taking you through the lists that we used. I was Force of the Abyss and Mike was Ogres. We'll look at the scenario, which was Pillage, and the terrain, which was preset for this round. Again, another interesting board. We're going to look at the deployment of the tokens and the armies, talk about the plan to see how I hope to win. We'll take you through the game turn by turn with an action replay at the end, and finally we'll conclude by saying who won and also hopefully picking out a few key points and learnings. So let's look at Mike's Ogres. Well, the first thing to say is we agreed to play at 2,300 points, which are the set levels for this round of the tournament. And as we tried different levels throughout the tournaments, I was hoping this would count as my optimum list and Mike's optimum list. It's worth noting that Mike's Ogres are different from Matt's Ogres, and as I said previously, they've been working together to optimize the list. The three things that he left out that I was surprised about were the Chariots, the Ogre Warlord, and Kuzlo and Madfall. Both the Chariots and the Warlord with the extra movement I found very hard to deal with in the last game, and Kuzlo and Madfall I think is an auto include in any Ogre list. So this is an interesting take on it. So let's see what's in there. First off, Red Goblin Scouts, brilliant unit at 100 points. They can flank, they can take tokens, they can get table quarters in other scenarios, and they can act as chaff. So brilliant. And for the Ogres particularly, they're useful because they don't have that much fast moving stuff. Then the Hunters with the Dwarven Ale, which will hopefully mean that they don't stop moving when he needs them. But the Hunters, again, high movement, ensnare, and they have Pathfinder, so they shouldn't have too much issue going around the board. Then the majority of his units are Berserker Braves. He's chosen 3 regiments. Again, great units to spam, really. Dash 15, 15 attacks, brutal crushing strength, wild charge D3. What's not to like? And I think it's something that is a real strength to this list. Then he's gone for 2 hordes of them. One with the boots and one with the caterpillar, which is useful with the Berserker Braves who've only got melee 4 but 30 attacks, so you don't want to be reducing the hits any more than you have to. Personally, when I saw them, I was happy because they're all defense 4 and I've got a lot of piercing 1 shooting, so I thought that gave me a bit of an advantage. Then you got your Siege Breakers with the Chalice of Wrath, again just to make them more survivable, and they're a great unit. I'm going to try and get around the flank of those. Then he's gone for 2 Ogre Warlocks, one with Conjurer's Staff and one with a Boomstick. The Conjurer's Staff allows you to reroll 1 missed hit, so that'll make his magic more effective. And basically he's going to be kicking out a lot of Lightning Bolts and drain life from me when I get close. The Army Standard Bearer next with the loot. Again, the Army Standard Bearer, I don't know why you wouldn't include it for 70 points. It scores, it's a solid chaff unit, and it adds inspiring, which is very important. And then finally he's gone for Nomnogorok, as part of his Ogre force. Nomagrok adds more lightning bolt to this unit, this force, and inspiring, and I think is one of the best special characters in the game. Then he's gone on for 2 Nightstalker allies. So he's taken some doppelgangers. Again, I think one of the better units in the Nightstalker army. But if you're going to use them as allies, you need to have a regiment to be able to unlock some of the other stuff. So it was those or scarecrows. So I think they were the right choice. And then the shade. I think he's taken the shade because it offers something that the ogres don't normally have. So he can protect his back lines. And potentially he can support combats with a flying unit. One of the other things that's worth noting about Nightstalkers is they make excellent allies because they come with the Mind Thrust special rule, which means that they can take leadership checks using my inspiring rather than not being able to take his own. So Nightstalkers are a good ally to take, and it'll be interesting to see how they do. Right, let's look at my forces in the Abyss. Well, this is what I call my optimum list. Over the course of the tournament, I've tried different things, and the best list that I could come up with from what I knew was this. What's kind of important is that I have gone for a bit more shooting as I've developed than I used to do, and we'll talk about that now. So first off, I've gone for a troop of Abyssal Ghouls. I'd like that to have been a bigger unit, or ideally some Flame Bearers, but I couldn't get the points in. But they're very good for just taking a token, which is what I'm intended to use them for in this game. Then 3 regiments of Flame Bearers. They unlock, 10 shots, range 18, piercing 1 with regen. Really like them as a unit now. I think most of my armies will include them. They do a lot of damage, and when you combine them with the Abyssal Warlocks, which I'm going to talk about in a moment, you're putting out an awful lot of shots in a turn. That's going to take most things down. Then I've gone for a horde of Molochs. Again, I love Molochs, but I wanted to put Molochs in rather than Horsemen, because if I come up against anything that's got Phalanx, it gives me a chance to attack well there. Now for my new unit, my Tortured Souls. So I hadn't thought about using Tortured Souls at the beginning of this tournament, but now at the end of the tournament, I wouldn't leave home without them. They're fantastic. They fly, so they can get into good positions. They've got unit strength 2, which is my favourite thing about them, which means they're great for taking objectives. But the dash 14, so they're always going to be moving. Life leech 2, so they're actually more survivable than they look. And they have crushing strength 1, so not too bad in combat, even though it's only 9 attacks with melee 4. But you can use them as taking tokens, or for dealing with scenario, or you can use them as chaff, or if you get them in the flank, they're actually going to do quite a bit of damage. So for me, the Tortured Souls are kind of the hidden gem of the Abyssal Force of the Abyss army. Then I've gone for 2 Abyssal Horsemen, again with the boots of striding and the caterpillar. Just important to get them around the board and make sure that their thunderous charge works. But the Abyssal Horsemen over the course of this tournament, again, I still think they can be a bit easy to take off, but their regen makes them a lot more survivable. And for the majority of my games, I've managed to heal 2-3 wounds on them, which I think means that they're 14-16 low nerve is overcome by that. But I do like Abyssal Horsemen, but I think you need to run them with these magic items, and ideally in pairs. Then for my characters, I've gone for a Seductress with the Blade of Slashing. I'm not sure if that's optimum, or if you should go for the Mace, but essentially she's there to take out characters and to act as a block if possible, and sometimes to support combats. You could go Mao for another 25 points, and if I could have fitted him in, I would have. But still, I think a flying character is always useful to take in a list. Then I've gone for 3 Abyssal Warlocks. Again, I think these are optimum units. 90 points for something that scores, that shoots really well, isn't terrible in combat, and is more survivable than you'd think with the regen 5. So yeah, Abyssal Warlocks, I've maxed out on those. And then finally, Manifestation of Bale, which has been in every one of my lists. And again, I think a great special character, an all-rounder, and most importantly against the Ogres, getting Bale around the back is going to cause a lot of issues, and hopefully be able to get some flank and rear charges. So let's look at the terrain. Again, another interesting terrain piece or setup. Points to note is this side of the board here is defended by these two blocking terrains, so that's quite an interesting squeeze point. This blocking terrain in the middle of the board there should split forces, and other than that, there's just quite a lot of difficult terrain that means that moving around is going to be hindered when charging. My thought on it is that the right hand side defended section on the hill is going to be quite hard for him to get into, so I'm going to try and use that to the best of my advantage, and the open ground through this channel here and this channel here should allow my shooting to do some wounds to him. That's kind of how I see the scenery. So let's look at the scenario. So we're playing Pillage, and you normally would get to roll for this, but we thought it was predetermined. I actually think it was 7 that was predetermined, but we thought it was 6. So Mike rolled off to place the token first, and you can see the numbers, the order they were placed in. What we can see from the placement of the tokens is that Mike has placed his tokens all in the centre, and I have placed mine on the outsides. That suits me because I'm going to try and shoot in that middle area, and I'm going to try and get around his flanks. We have 4 tokens on one side and 2 on the other, which means that whoever gets to choose that is going to have an advantage. I think when you're playing Pillage, the 2 things to realise or think about are, if you place your tokens far out like I have done, that means that you can stretch the game quite well, which is what I've tried to do here. And also to note that unit strength is what controls them at the end of the game, and so keeps some unit strength back to move into positions later game to contest them. So let's look at deployment. So Mike won the roll to choose sides and went to the south side. The reason he chose that was because 4 tokens are on that side and he didn't want me to have that advantage to begin with. But I was quite pleased with him choosing sides because it meant that I had 2 free drops, as I had 1 extra drop than him in the number of units I have. When we look at Mike's deployment, we can see that he has left the 2 flanks open, which is great for me because I want to get around them, and he's deployed pretty evenly throughout the board, with his scouts at the back here coming out to do some mischief later on, but have them protected at the moment. Also, his shade is on the left hand side there. That's something I need to watch out for because it can hit my shooting units and close them down. For myself, I deployed with my shooting being able to fit into or kill zone here. I also deployed Bale and these tortured souls last, getting into the flanks, and I put my Molochs in the middle, the idea that they could choose where they were going to support either left or right, and I had to put my Abyssal Horsemen somewhere, so I put them so that they could get and use these woods more easily, so they wouldn't be affected by the effect of that. I distributed my leadership all over so that we were able to shoot, but also have leadership in every area I wanted. And finally, I placed my Seductress here with the intention that she's going to go and get Nom. So, what's my plan? Well, it's quite simple. I'm going to try and shoot with these Warlocks, these Braves here, peppering them, and then when they don't guess, I'm going to shoot the Tortured Souls up and get that token. I'm going to get these guys to threaten into the middle, but actually they're going for the token up the top here, and Bale's going to do something similar, supporting them. My knights here and here are literally going to try and defend this area here. So they're not going to engage if they don't need to. They're going to just keep him honest whilst they're shooting him, because I should be able to do a lot of damage. And my Molochs can decide which way they're going to go. The Tortured Souls here I'm going to use as a blocker in the middle, so making sure he can't get through to my shooters straight away. And my Seductress is going to go and get Nom and stop him doing all the good stuff he does, because that was a lesson I learnt in the last game. So I think that's my plan. Hopefully having the last turn as well means that I should be in a position where I can choose to move my unit strength into the tokens to control them in their last turn. So, first turn. Mike won the roll to go first and decided to go first, which I was happy with because most of my range is 18 on shooting, so I wouldn't have been able to do too much. And also it meant that I could get to the tokens on the last turn, which I think is an advantage. What he did was, this flank he turned to face here so as to put protection on. He moved everything forward here just a touch, and he moved everything here forward. Importantly, noting that he wasn't quite in range of my knights with the units here, but his shade could now come at me and start doing some damage. So he was within 20 there, and I didn't like that. Then in shooting, he did 3 wounds on these knights, which hurt quite a bit. 1 wound on the flame bearers, and 3 wounds on the Tortured Souls. So it's a pretty good shooting round for him. But all in all, I probably was expecting that and was relatively happy. My turn 1. Well, the first thing I did was I moved my Seductress behind the Tortured Souls, and I moved the Tortured Souls forward so as to be in range of challenging Nomagorok. I moved Bale 10 inches. I flew the Tortured Souls here to protect the shooters, but also to challenge into this area here. I tried to move everything back over here so that it was out of range of charge range, but I couldn't get everything away. So the only thing I couldn't get away was these flame bearers from his shade. So if he wanted to, he could charge them. But I also had them in range for shooting, which was what I wanted to do. I also just moved the Molochs facing to the left there, so it looks like they're going to support there for now. And I kept these ghouls on the token, just holding them, hoping that they wouldn't be able to get to them by the end of the game. In shooting, this warlock did 2 wounds on these berserkers. Then my flame bearers and my warlock did 4 wounds on the hunters in the wood, which was very lucky, but I was very happy with that because that really gave them a big kick. And then the rest of my shooting here, and with Bale, did 4 more wounds there. Probably felt I should have done a bit more, but all in all, 10 wounds done. I should also note that my knights regened 2 wounds back, which really took the sting out of the previous round of shooting, and it meant that I'd done 10 to his 5, which made me feel at this stage that I could outshoot him if he didn't come at me, which was great because as he came forward, I could pick at him and get around the back. So what did Mike do on his turn 2? Well, first off, he brought these guys slightly forward so as to get these in the wild charge range. He charged the shade, as I expected he would do. He brought these guys into a more forward position, but not too forward because my knights were threatening. He moved his scouts into a blocking position, and he brought these guys forward, but protecting their flank with the building. And finally, he moved these guys slightly further forward. Then in the shooting phase, he did 1 wound here. That's on the Tortured Souls. He did 2 wounds on my warlock, and another wound on my Tortured Souls there, but not getting any waivers, which I was quite pleased with. And then in combat, he did 2 wounds on my flame bearers, but not getting a waiver either. So it was a pretty straightforward turn. So how did I respond? Well, so first off, I moved these guys back out of his wild charge range. I charged my warlock here against his scouts. The reason being that rather than shooting, which I could have done, I felt that I wanted to have a piece blocking his forward advance if I did win, or I could maybe basically keep him away from my knights to give me the alpha charge. Other than that, I charged in my Tortured Souls here, and Seductress here. I moved Bale 10 inches up and turned him into the centre of the board, and I moved these knights back just a touch, and these guys to the right, just to keep me out of his charge range, so I could control the area that I'd talked about over here. Then in shooting, what did I do? Well, I did another wound here, but I put everything on these berserkers on the hill, including Bale's lightning bolt, and killed them, which was good, but I think probably an overkill. Should have been able to shoot something else, but I wasn't able to because I didn't get a great shooting range. Then in combat, well, this is where it all went my way this turn. I caused 2 wounds on the Shade with my flame bearers, which I was happy with in any case, and then I rolled an 11 and a 12, which Mike wasn't very happy about, but these things happen, I suppose. So that was very lucky. But then my Warlock did 3 wounds on his scouts, who were out of the leadership bubble, and they also popped. So that really made a big difference on their left-hand flank. I did 4 wounds on the berserkers on the hill, but didn't break them. I did 2 wounds on these berserkers and healed 2 back, which is what I wanted to do with those Tortured Souls, maybe make them last another turn. And the Shade did 2 wounds on Nob, which was good, stopping him being able to do his magic. And that was everything for my turn 2. So Mike's turn 3. What did he do? Well, all these units over here, he moved them tentatively around, but out of range of my knights, which I was quite pleased with because that was what I wanted to do, just keep them at arm's length. He counter-charged here on the right-hand flank. That's where the big movements came. He turned to charge the flank of my Seductress. He withdrew and charged Bale with Nob, which I didn't see happening, so that was a good move on his part. And then he charged the Tortured Souls with Siege Breakers. Then in the shooting phase, this is probably the shooting phase of Drain Life for Mike. He did Drain Life on the Warlock there, doing 4 wounds, which allowed him to heal back the Ogres in the Wood, which was very annoying because those 4 wounds were hard fought for. And then he rolled a leadership check and killed it, which was even better, but I think only fair considering the luck I'd had on that flank. He cast Drain Life on these guys, doing 3 on those Tortured Souls. Which is going to make a big difference in that combat. Again, it was something that I hadn't considered when I charged them in, because Drain Life is really good in the fact that it can add wounds and take it off your opponent. So really swinging, it's a real 6-pointer as it would be. So that was all his shooting. Then in combat, well, as I said on the hill with the Tortured Souls, he did a few wounds on top of the Drain Life and managed to break them, which was disappointing, but I had to live with it. Then on the right-hand flank. So the order in which he did this was important. He did the 8 wounds on the Seductress, but didn't break her, which was really very lucky. But also meant that the Siege Breakers were stuck in a position where they couldn't really turn to do anything. So what he did was he overran. He killed the Tortured Souls, which was pretty foregone conclusion. And he overran by 5 inches. Now, potentially giving me the flank with Bale, but not really a problem because he's just charged Nob in. Unfortunately, Nob did no wounds, which meant that Bale had a free shot at their flank. So, again, pretty bad luck on Mike's behalf. So, what did I do in my turn 3? Well, on the right flank, I did take the opportunity to charge Bale in, but I also put the Flame Bearers in to add a little bit of weight. I moved my Moloch slightly further forward, just challenging these guys. I decided that I needed to send these up now, get them out of the way, and that was pretty much all of my movement. A bit of rearranging down the back line. Then in the shooting phase, I did a few more wounds on these Berserkers who failed the first but passed their second. I did 2 wounds on this warlock here, but not getting a waiver, and I did 4 more wounds here, but again, not getting a waiver. Then in combat, this went quite well for me. I did 4 wounds on these berserkers, which I was very happy with the seductress, because she shouldn't have been there. Then the siege breakers in the middle here, I did 10 wounds, which was about right, I think. Then I rolled a 6 for my leadership, which Mike was very happy at, because that meant he'd survived. And then I remembered we had brutal, which Mike was not so happy about. And unfortunately, the siege breakers died because they were out of the range of none. So I decided to face my Bale up to the top, which meant that if his siege breakers turned to me, I could fly over the back of them, or if they pushed up onto the token, I could then go after him. And I turned my flame bearers here, trying to put a bit of shooting power into this area here, so we could push for that middle token. So Mike's turn 4. What did he do? Well, he counter-charged against the seductress here. He turned the berserkers here back to start protecting this token. He brought his standard bearer to the left hand side. He started to move the doppelgangers back, because I think he's going to start looking to control this token here. And he also moved Bale to face Nomagorok down here, out of Bale's charge, but facing towards my ghouls at the bottom. He moved these guys back. It's quite a nice move here. So because of the position of the obstacle there and the angle of his butcher, there's not enough frontage for my monarchs to be able to get in. So that was a nice defensive move from Mike there. In the shooting phase, he shot at my flame bearers with his warlock. Didn't do. We did some wounds, but didn't do a waiver. And he also did 3 wounds on these guys here, wavering them. He did 3 wounds on my ghouls, wavering them as well, but they all survived their leadership checks. In combat, he killed my seductress here and turned so that his front was in the front of Bale. So if I wanted to charge the front, which I'm not going to do, but he's still protecting himself. And that was all of the combat. So let's have a look at my turn 4. Well, what did I do? So the first thing I did was I charged the berserkers here with my knights. I also moved the tortured souls further up onto the token. I moved Bale to the left out of the charge of his berserkers, and I brought these guys further up so as to challenge onto Nom, and I turned these guys this way, protecting this flank. I brought the monarchs slightly further forward, but I wasn't going to charge in because I didn't want to get flanked if I didn't destroy. And that was all of my movement. Then in shooting, I shot at his warlock with my flame bearers, doing some wounds but not wavering. I did 6 wounds on Nom but didn't waver with these 2 units here, which I was a bit disappointed about. And I did some wounds with the lightning bolt on these berserkers. In combat, I destroyed the berserkers here and turned to face his units. Only the hunters could get to me. I was just out of sight of his berserkers, which I was quite pleased with. So if you wanted to charge, you can only get 1 unit in. So Mike's turn 5. What did he do? Well, he moved everything over here to try and put a lot of unit strength around that token. He turned to face with the berserkers against Bale. He charged in with these hunters on my knights, and he brought these guys further forward by a touch. Then in his shooting phase, he did some more wounds with this warlock on these guys, causing a waiver. He shot off my unit of ghouls with Nom, which I was disappointed about. and he did some more wounds on these flame bearers, wavering them with this warlock. His standard bearer did Bane Chant on the hunters, so that was going to be quite a nasty combat against my knights. Then in combat, what did he do? Well, he only did 7 wounds on my knights, and they survived. So that meant that I could potentially charge in against his flank and his front next turn. And that was all the combats we had. So my turn 5, what did I do? Well, I charged both my knights against his hunters. I moved my monarchs back just a touch, which I'll explain in a moment. I flew Bale over to take this token. I brought the warlock this way, so to get onto the token in the corner there as I need to. I turned my tortured souls here. What I should have done was actually put them on the hill to give them an option to support some of the combats. But I also thought, well, they're protected behind that hill, so maybe that's not a bad thing. I should also note that when I charged in with both my knights, that meant that they could get out of the arc of sight of these butchers, so I could start to put some pressure on that token at the back there. And I think that was. I also brought forward these flame bearers here, but they were protected by these flame bearers, so they couldn't be charged by those butchers in the wood over here. In shooting, I shot at Nom with these guys and killed him, which was great. And I also did 2 wounds on these guys with my warlock, but it wasn't a huge shooting range. In combat, I killed the butchers. I also regened 5 back on these knights, which was a massive regen, and I turned the units so that essentially these guys were going to try and move onto this token somehow. So I put them in a position so that he couldn't stop me getting into within 3. The other thing that I should note about my turn 5 is that I moved my monarchs back so that I could turn them and move them over here to put a unit strength around that token, combined with either these flame bearers or this warlock. So essentially, even though it doesn't look at the moment, I can get a lot of unit strength on that and claim it at the end of the game. Mike's turn 6. So what did he do? Well, he charged in with the standard bearer there to stop those knights getting out. He was unable to bring this guy here, his warlock, to get in the front of my knights, so maybe they could get out. He brought the berserkers here and turned them to face, essentially controlling that token. But as I say, I've got a plan with those monarchs. He brought these guys further forward, and that was all his movement really. Moved this butcher slightly further forward so that he could shoot a warlock in. In shooting, he shot at the knights here doing 2 wounds, and he shot at this warlock doing 2 wounds, but neither of them got a waver. And then in combat, he did 2 wounds on my knights, but didn't get a waver here. And that was pretty much the end of his turn 6. So my turn 6, what did I do? Well, it was kind of straightforward. I moved forward with these guys here, so as to be within 3 of the token. I brought my monarchs, as I said, within 3 of this token. I brought my flame bearers further forward, so I had the unit strength around there. I turned to face this way, so I could shoot if I needed to. I turned Bale down here. I brought my warlock into range of this token here. Then in shooting, what I do? Well, insult to injury, this warlock shot off his warlock, which was pretty good. And that was all the shooting that I did that turn. Bale tried to do lightning bolt here, but it didn't do anything. And that was all of the movement, all the shooting. Sorry, there was no combat. Didn't really need any at this stage, and that meant that I was winning at the end of turn 6. We rolled for a turn 7 and didn't get one. So that meant that I won by controlling this token here, this token here, this token here, and this one here to Mike controlling just that one. So that was the end of the game. A solid 23-7 victory to the forces of the Abyss. So let's have an action replay. And there you have it. A solid victory for the forces of the Abyss in 20 seconds. Okay, so let's conclude. Let's look at how my plan went. So I had the second turn, so I could wait to score, which is essentially how I played the game. It's always great in that scenario to be able to choose where you're going to score. And even if there had been a turn 7, I still would have been in a good position. But it just allows you to hold back and take your time to make those moves, which I did very well with my Molochs, I thought. Yeah, round the flanks. I had the opportunity to get around the flanks straight off, and I did that on one side, challenging him and pulling him. That's been on the right hand side. On the left hand side, I was able just to fly up and take the token, and when he turned to come to me, I was able to hit him hard with my knights. I kept some units away because I had shooting and range. I was able to. He could either move into the kill zone or he could keep away. And apart from when he got the shade in against my shooters, I think I was able to control the charges that I had when we took them. I was able to pick off his Berserker Braves with my shooting. I think that I focused most of my shooting there, and that took them down in the majority of cases. And most importantly, what we learned from the last Ogre game was I was able to stop Nom. So I was able to hit him hard with the shade first off, stopping him doing any healing or anything like that. And then when he got out on his own, I shot him up. So Nom was less powerful in this game. So the final result was a solid win for the Forces of the Abyss, 23-7, which leaves me on 114 tournament points and should give me the top 20 position I wanted, and most importantly, best in race with Forces of the Abyss. But as we say always on Geeky Goblin, it's not just a win; it's the taking part, and it was a great game. I really enjoyed it. I think Mike got some really bad luck. I think if those two combats in round 2 hadn't gone my way so emphatically, I think it would have been a much closer game. But he was an absolute gentleman about it, and he's a really great guy. Always love playing him. He's one of the best players I've played against. I know that one of the things he likes to use is the email game of using the universal battle system, where essentially you play a turn and then email that to your opponent, and so it's a bit like long distance chess. And I've played against him with that, and I will continue to do that in the future. But no, he's a great bloke, and really chuffed to have got the win because he's a top player in the world. So what can I say we learned? Well, I moved Bale into position on the right hand side, and I only moved him 10 so I could get that shot in. But that allowed Nom to disengage and get a charge on him. I didn't see it, but I was kind of just focusing on my shooting, and I should have been more focused on it. And the positioning was far more important than the 2 wounds I would have done with the lightning bolt. When I did charge, I made sure that I was going to win, because if I'd not won at those stages, it would have been very bad for me. So where possible, double charge. Make sure you get the combat result you want, ignoring a double one, because that does get you in a good position. You're not opening yourself up to counter charges. And this is something that I've been saying throughout these videos. Covering your angles. Make sure that when you are positioning, you're positioning in such a way that you're maximising the amount of board that you are facing. Mike did a really good thing in the game where when he moved his units on the right hand side and turned them to stop, he stopped Bale being able to fly 20 inches and get out of his charge range. and that meant that I was hemmed in a bit there. I didn't get around the flank as quickly as I'd liked. So he did that well, but it's a lesson that I'm going to take away from this whole tournament. It's just improve my angle management.
So there you have it, the end of the battle, a win for the Force of the Abyss. Very pleased with that. Hopefully that gives me a top 20 position in the Call to Arms tournament, and ideally a best in race for Forces of the Abyss. I'll let you know how that goes. But I want to say thanks to Mike. Great game. He's a very good player, and I feel very happy with that win. I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. If you did, please subscribe to the Geeky Goblin channel, or leave any comments below. Otherwise, I'll see you all soon, and take care.